Could you tell us who you are?
Yep, so I'm Rasheed Peters. I'm a junior here at Brandeis in Waltham, Mass. Studying business and minoring in creativity of the arts and social transformation along with studio art. Pretty cool combo in my opinion.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm also the host. Well, I'm usually the host, today I'm not.
Hey, not today, boy.
But I am the host and creator of Proper Bantah.
So, I heard a rumor about you. I heard that you're from Jamaica.
What?
What is it like
Could
growing
you
up
tell?
in Jamaica?
Growing up in Jamaica was really great. It's something that I definitely wouldn't trade for anything in the world. So I grew up in like Spanish Town, Jamaica. My mom's mother lived like 10 minutes from where I lived in one direction, and my other grandma like lived 50 minutes in the other direction. So where my grandma lives, like in Mount Moreland in the countryside, like we raise animals. I also grew up in the church. So I grew up in like, strict Anglican faith, but just like going to church and just like having that community was like something big. School was also fun. I think, like my creativity right now is in due a big part to like, going to that high school. And it was something like, that was encouraged and supported by all my friends. So it wasn't like, something I was like polo or like, really weird or out of pocket. It was just like a thing that we
Like a
all
natural
did.
thing.
Yeah, and we all enjoyed.
Do you have like a favorite memory from growing up in Jamaica?
I think my favorite memory of growing up in Jamaica would probably be just like all the trips that I would take with my aunt. My aunt is like one of the best persons. I know my aunt Tracy, she really embraces this you only live once mentality, like to its fullest. So I grew up, I spent a lot of time around her and we just like had fun, just like exploring like the island, being like, dryland tourists. I think just all those memories, like going to the beaches and like the different, just all the attractions and just like seeing that was like really cool for me. That's my favorite memory. Yeah.
So, since coming to America, how would you say that people in America view Jamaica?
The perception, for the most part, has been positive, but it's also very limited and very, I think, narrow-minded and ignorant as well.
Yeah.
It's just, from what I've gotten, it's been limited to like what's in mainstream media and like on the news and like what's portrayed, and that's like, Usain Bolt and like, beaches.
Yeah.
And then for some reason crime. I don't know, and I think, as I said before, this is due to like a big part like with what's portrayed in the media, but people don't really know much, I would say, about like, the intricacies of like the culture and like the beauty of it. Like for example, like you listen to artists like Drake. I and other Jamaicans are able to like pick up on like certain things, and like even in fashion as well, like we're able to pick up on certain things and be like, oh, that's ours. But there's no real credit given to it, and like other people see it and like hear or like language or like see our fashion or like just like see our culture, and they attribute it to other things, and like that doesn't get attributed to us. But the narrative of the Usain Bolt and the Bob Marley and the weed smoking gets like perpetuated, but it never really changes. So that's definitely a big thing. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring this back to what you said about growing up in Jamaica. You went to a school where everyone was pretty creative and they were able to, share their creative aspects. What would you say as a creative, what is your one message or messages that you want to convey to your audience?
Yeah. I think the one message that I always like try, I don't know if it's so much a message or a feeling that I try to evoke. Like I consider myself an experienced creator, so that's all what I'm about. I feel like there's so much that happens that's negative and that's bad, and that can, be very like daunting, especially on your spirit. But like if I can do something to transport people away from that, that's great. But on the same wavelength, like I don't want people to ignore the hard things, you know. So I think that's That's like the overarching message that I try to communicate.
And if you could say a word or phrase that you think describes you.
Finding the comfort in being uncomfortable. Because it's only in the discomfort that we grow. And I don't think people recognize that a lot. Like for you to like evolve and grow, you definitely have to be uncomfortable. And that's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing all the time.
You're a very stylish kid, swaggy guy.
I try.
How important is it to you that you look good?
How important is it to me that I look good? I don't know. I wouldn't say it's something that's like super important, but like I think my appreciation and the level of importance that I put on like how I dress and like, you know, how I present myself definitely comes from my dad. That's something that, you know, like I grew up seeing him do. It's something that he instilled in me. He was like always this super pristine guy. But I feel like as I've grown older, it's become something that I enjoy. I feel like you can express yourself a lot through like how you dress, by just like adding and like taking away certain elements. There's like a lot that can, you know, be said or like change about like, you know, you or your personality or your mood. So I find that really cool. And then they also say like, you know, dress for how you want to be addressed, which I think is really true, you
I
know?
love that.
Yeah, like I feel like how you look has a big role to play in like your self-confidence and like, you know, like how people react to you or like perceive you. It's really funny because like I have like certain shoes that when I wear them I walk taller than I actually am. So like I wear them, and just because I'm like wearing that type of shoes, like, you know, like I feel like more, you know,
It just gives you more confidence.
like I'm more there. I'm like, yeah, I'm a walk. You know, I'm a feel myself. But yeah, it's definitely, it's not something that like I take super crazy. So I'm not like, you know, crazy about it. Like I'm not a hype beast by any means, but like I do see a lot of value in like presenting myself and dressing up. But there are days when you will catch me in multiple different color sweats and a do-rag, and I have no shame about it.
Love that.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your fashion sense or your style?
It's simple, for one. It's simple and classic, but it has a bit of like edge and like streetwear vibe to it as well. So I think it's like all of those like elements like combined. I feel like a lot of my inspiration, like, you know, comes from like that, you know, old dancehall culture and just different things that inspire me as well. I try to be as clean and as simple as I can, but to try and add like a bit of like edge, just a little bit of flair.
And how do you think that like influences or relates to your creativity?
I feel like probably aside from the art that I make and the art that I do, I feel like, you know, my fashion is like my biggest way of like putting my creativity out there and like exuding my creativity. For me, getting dressed every day is like art.
Going back to how you were talking about you like to add a little bit of edge, would you ever get like anything wild like a face tattoo?
Hi, Mom. Face tattoo? Probably not. My excuse for piercing my ears with like my mom was like, my brother's ears are pierced, like, you know, so I'm gonna pierce my ears. So my brother dyed his hair once, so that's something I think that I'd experiment with, but like I have really dark skin, so I'd want like a brighter color to like contrast that, but I don't know which color, but we'll see probably this summer.
Okay, I'm looking forward to
Switch
that.
it up.
Right. So who is your biggest style inspiration?
I would say that I get like inspiration from a lot of people, but I'd definitely say my best friend, Ashika. She has her own like styling. It's called House. It's a Haus, however that's pronounced. But she's really a genius with fashion and with dressing, and it's just amazing. Like just growing up, she was like a big, you know, influence for me. Like my sounding board, it's like, oh, I want to wear this or that. Like, what do you think? And you know, she like mix and match, go shopping together, and like now she's like doing this professionally, and she's doing an actual thing. She's doing like reviews of like red carpets and stuff. So she's really good. But she pushes the boundaries of like fashion a lot and of style. She's not like scared to take risks and just, you know, really just like do whatever her mind tells her. And that's like something that like I really like and hope I get to that point one day with my style and my fashion. But yeah.
So, can you tell me about a very formative experience in your childhood upbringing, I guess?
Like, as I mentioned, I grew up in the church. Both sides of my family were Anglican, so that was like a big thing to us. So at the church that I went to, we had this youth group that was like called AYF. It's like the Anglican Youth Fellowship, and pretty much, like your normal club at like school or anything, but it was like for like, the young people of the church. From a very young age, I think before like the actual age when you're supposed to start like being on the leadership team, I was on the leadership team. So I would like help with like secretary stuff and like accounting. I was just like really active on that team, but it really like taught me a lot of like, the things that I know today. Like business is like the thing that I'm like passionate about, like academic and like professional wise. And I think a lot of like the things that I know about business and I've learned about business, today, like was from like that moment, just like learning those principles of like, from like such a young age of just like having responsibility and like how to be organized and like take care of things like in that group.
Could you tell me about some of the values that you gained
Yeah.
from just being a part of the church for your life?
Yeah, I think being organized is one of them. I think that's one of my biggest things, like even now. I think creativity was another one, and that's obviously continued today. I'm doing this,
Yeah.
But creativity was also one of those values that was like instilled at that moment. And probably the last one that I'll talk about is like accountability. Just having responsibility and having people from like that very young age come up to me and be like, did you get this done? And it's like, what's happening with this? Or like, how much money do we have in our account? And it's like a 10, 12-year-old like taking care of that. Like, it was a big sense of responsibility, but it's something that I really liked and enjoyed.
Gotcha. Can you tell me about how you've applied these skills to, say, this show?
Yeah, so this show has, been a whirlwind. Like from the inception, it's something that I really wanted to like be different. One thing I was very like, adamant about was like having the two sections. So you have like the short infield in addition to like the sit-down traditional interview. 'Cause I feel like that does a lot when it comes to like storytelling and like giving people I'd say like a comfortable environment, but still a suitable platform to tell their story in a way that's genuine to them.
As the leader of this sort of
that's
team,
crazy.
yeah, you're the guy. But yeah, you're gonna need to pitch this idea to people. But what I thought would be fun is if you were to make a 30-second pitch to a 5-year-old.
To a 5-year-old?
To a 5-year-old.
Wow.
To a 5-year-old.
So here we go. So Proper Bantah is a TV show, and it's a show that we hope will be a thing where people can come and just like be honest and tell their stories, talk about their upbringing, and at the same time we hope that the people who will watch it on YouTube will find some sense of inspiration, or just like one thing that like really stands out to them and like it really has an impact on them or their work or their life or someone else's life.
So what would you say, or like what kind of role does your family play in your life today?
Oh yeah, anyone who knows me knows that the most important thing to me is my family, like hands down. So a lot of the values that I hold, a lot of like how I carry myself and think about things like comes from my family. So I would call my mom my strength and I would call my dad my stronghold.
Yeah.
And like to this day, like, that's what it is. My mom is literally the strongest person. I know, like we've been through a lot as a family and she hasn't broken, and I just pray to have like, at least a quarter, an eighth of her strength when I get older, because it's something that's just like really admirable. My dad is my stronghold. All of this, like me, what I am today is, my dad. I remember like growing up, reading was something that like, he instilled in me from like I was younger. My dad writes like really well, like really like phenomenally well. So growing up, like, I had to like enter like essay competitions, and he'd like work with me on my essays and like how I would read and like, enunciate and like all of that. Like, he really groomed me to be the man that I am today, like in that aspect and in like my values as well. So that's just definitely my stronghold. Like when I think about the type of man that I want to be, I definitely think about my dad. So that's definitely my stronghold, and grateful and forever like indebted to them, and I hope I continue to make them proud.
That's so beautiful. Do you kind of feel tear, international tear? But do you kind of feel like you have that, not necessarily a burden, it could be a burden, it could be like a blessing of kind of being a representative of your family wherever you go? Like even here in Brandeis, even things that you're talking about, like your father being an incredible writer, or you know, your mother being this strong person, do you kind of feel like that's something that you like to carry with you and you're intentional about?
Yeah,
representing
definitely,
that?
100%, and it's something that I'm intentional about. Like everything that I do here, this show, my academics, every other project that I'm involved in, like it is for me, and I'm doing it because like I want to do it, but it's always in the back of my mind that there's like a bigger purpose and a greater purpose that's like bigger than me or my life or like what I want, and it's, you know, for my family. Like everything that I do here is for them. So like, you know, anytime it gets hard, it gets like difficult, like anytime like I start second guessing myself or what I'm about or why I'm doing it, like, you know, I remember my family, and that's definitely the thing that grounds me. So I wouldn't say it's like so much a burden or, you know, pressure, but I'd say like it's more of an anchor. It's what like keeps me stable. It's what keeps me grounded, and it's what keeps me me.
Oh, keeps me. Nice. I love it. I love it. Okay, so speaking about like your family, your background, your past and everything, and where you are now and you never expected to be here, what is one thing, a sentence, a word, a piece of advice that you would tell your 10-year-old self if you could just like zip back into the past and go speak to 10-year-old Rasheed?
But I think one thing that I would tell 10-year-old Rasheed is to be completely honest and true to and with yourself, no matter what the cost. Yeah, that'd have been great.
Like that would be it?
Yeah.
Okay. We've spoken about, you know, your past, how you've gotten to be who you are today. We have spoken about your future, what's going to happen from here on out. So now we can speak about hypotheticals. You know, this is who I am. This is what I love to do. Elon Musk approaches you and tells you that he has reserved a space for you on his spaceship that is going to Mars because this Earth is crumbling and we don't have much time left here. You can come on my spaceship, but you can only bring 3 things, not people. Let's assume that like your mom and everyone that you hold dearly to you within 9 years will be there. 3 things.
A blank book
Ooh.
with a pencil. I'm gonna combine those two. No? All right, a blank.
Actually, no, you can do it. You can do it. It's
A
allowed.
blank book with a pencil. If I'm gonna be in a spaceship, I need to occupy myself.
That's
so.
true. We don't know how long it takes to get to Mars.
So definitely a blank book.
Okay.
The second thing that I think I would bring is a chest full of Jamaican food.
Is it perishable Jamaican food?
This is.
Oxtail can't go to Mars.
We're going. Oxtail is going to. Oxtail and curry goat is going to Mars. We are talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, no, like that's. I don't. It won't perish. Like that's my leeway.
Nothing perishes in Mars.
It's in Mars.
Yeah.
It's gonna live.
Yeah.
And then one more thing. Let me think hard about this.
Technically, you've cheated twice. 'Cause you definitely brought more than one thing with each thing.
The chest with the food.
But I'm gonna pretend like that's not that didn't happen. So here's your 3rd/30th thing. TikTok.
I know, I'm thinking.
I'm Elon Musk. Your offer expires in
Elon.
5 seconds.
Gonna wed.
Are we
Elon.
going to Mars or no?
I don't know. I think I would bring something that's like very sentimental to me. To just like remind me of like what was. So probably I have this gold watch that my dad passed down to me. So yeah, I'd probably bring the gold watch. Yeah, it's just, you know, remind me.
Just tell
of, like,
time
what was of the
remember
earth
love,
before
yeah.
it ended.
before we refuse to listen to Al Gore.
While eating my Jamaican food.
That doesn't perish.
That does not perish because
Okay.
it's in a chest.
You're right. Freezer
Yes.
chest. Okay.
So like with everything that you've talked about today, you've, you know, talked a lot about like how you're creative and talked about like, you know, where you're coming from and the things that you've done, and it's really exciting to hear about. But like we also heard that you recently put together like some images for an exhibit. I'd love to maybe hear a little bit about that if you'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, so I did like a series of prints that was like entitled The Revolution, that just pretty much tried to like encapsulate like the story of the black man and what that means to be a black man in like today's world. One of the pieces, like, it's transformed to make the black figure, the black man, into royalty. And then like it transitions into an army. Because I've been like very fascinated with like, you know, this concept of the revolution and like army. So just thinking about what I think that movement means currently. And then I brought both together. So I gave the person in the position of royalty, an army, to start the revolution. So yeah, that's been on show in the gallery for a few days now. It's really weird. Still getting used to the fact that I have work that's like on display in a gallery that people are like going up and like looking intricately at and like having conversations about. So that's been pretty cool.
While this is like your most recent work, I think probably my favorite thing that I've ever seen you do was the Night for Africa fashion show here at Brandeis. And I think that kind of was like your debut, honestly, to like this whole like creative, you know, sense here at Brandeis. So I'd love if, you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about that and just like, you know, what happened, like, how'd it go down?
In my artwork, I love working with people. It's like always been a big tenet for me. So doing that fashion show, you know, I definitely got to like interact with people and like use people to tell the story. But I think my favorite part of that project was like, you know, the after effects. Just like seeing how it affects people was just like something that was like really beautiful to me. I don't necessarily like to be at the forefront of it. I don't like being the center of attention, which is weird because I have a whole talk show. But, you know, just like seeing, like having people come up to me like after that show and like hearing the reactions from people about like what they thought, like how it went, was just like something that was like really beautiful and like a feeling that I really enjoyed, to just see that my work had like some meaning or some impact on like others. And that's the only thing I can ever hope to achieve or ask for going forward.
Do you have like a big dream in terms of like a big project or like a big, you know, like the big installation that you want to do that would be like, you know, maybe like a career defining moment? Do you have anything like that like in mind?
Like I have one thing in mind and I'm like, probably I shouldn't say it. Like,
that's not a good idea. You gotta say it now.
But no, like since I was younger, it's always been a dream for me to work with Beyonce. I think Beyonce is a genius. Like
the queen.
My dream is to like creatively direct a tour for like someone big. So even if it's not Beyonce, just someone on that level, to just, you know, be very specific and like get to work with like music and like lights and dancers and just create like this really amazing and impactful like experience for like, you know, people who like go on that tour.
I'd like to maybe hear, because we can talk a lot about like, you know, physical things and like real life things, but maybe let's talk about like what kind of impact do you want to have? You know, when we're all gone, you know, when global warming finally finishes us
That's
all.
been a theme through this entire episode.
But like, you know, when we are gone, like, what do you want your legacy to be? Like, you know, what do you want people to say? Like, what did Rasheed do while he was here?
Growing up, like, I think that's something I decided like a long time ago. Like before I decided like what I wanted to do as a profession or like where I see myself in the future, I think young Rasheed like decided that a long time ago. And I think the thing that I'm most passionate about and like that I want to like be my legacy, regardless of like the profession, career or field that I end up in, is that I want to give people access. Like I feel like there's a large group of people that don't have the opportunity to access that they need. So I feel like we can like, you know, fix a ton of things and like change a million things, but if people don't have the opportunity to actually access those things, nothing's gonna change. And I don't know like what way that's gonna like present itself or like take form. Even if it's just like a small group of people, to just like give them the opportunity to like access the things that they need. That's something I'm passionate about.